Honestly, I was very confused by the new 4.2 trailer, and I won't lie, I'm still very confused. Since this is gonna be a short video because of the short time I have to edit it, I'll have to cut the intro very short. As always, this is a theory video. I use information available in the game, but my conclusions and theories are not to be considered the official lore of the game, unless I got something right and it's confirmed in a later update of the game. Okay, let's talk about the trailer and what I think it may mean. It's clear that Furina is gonna be accused of something, she's gonna stand trial, and the Oratrice will sentence her with a death penalty. But who is the prosecution? Since we heard Arlecchino talking about something being wrong with the Primordial Sea, I suppose she may be the prosecution, although that would be too easy. Then we hear Navia talking about a flood that dissolved every single person that got too close to the water, which is very ominous. With these trailers, there are always two possibilities. Either she's talking about a past event, or a flood actually happened and a lot of people lost their lives. Although the first option may be more feasible, Ray Chase, Nevelet's voice actor, did tell us that the water has reached Poisson, so the flood may be actually happening, and the people of Poisson may have lost their lives. This is probably the reason why Navia later in the video says that everyone's dead. Next we hear Mona, who is for some reason involved in version 4.2, telling most likely us to stay away from the strange water because she feels something ominous inside of it. Since she is a columnist at the Steambird, it's not that surprising to see her in Fontaine. Then we see Navia falling from a broken bridge in a place that we don't know yet but that we are shown in the video. This very ancient tower with some kind of device on top and some plants that remind me for some reason of Enkanomiya. We are also shown a pretty interesting fountain with what seems to be Archean on top, but the water coming out of it looks like primordial seawater. Back to Navia's scene, we see something light blue shining on the bridge, so it's probably the device from before, and what seems to be primordial water underneath Navia, so she's falling straight into it. Either doesn't seem to be able to catch her, so three options. We actually catch her before falling, someone else swoops in at the last second and saves her, so I would think either Clorinde or, who knows, maybe Arlecchino. Or she actually falls into the water and dissolves, which means that the dissolution can be, or somehow will be, reverted by the end of the Archon quest, which would also mean that the people who got dissolved in Poisson and the rest of Fontaine will come back to life. Then we hear a familiar voice I wasn't expecting to be in Fontaine, the Hexen Circle witch N, Nicole, the one who can feel the Irminsul changes, which makes her appearance very interesting. Something tells me that Irminsul will appear again and there will be a new change in the memories of the people. This reminds me of the one prophecy I've been reminding you in every single video for the past 2 months or so. Egeria will be forgotten, just like Rukkhedevata. Now let's analyze what Nicole said. First of all, the prophecy will be fulfilled, so it's gonna happen. The way she said that makes me think that she's answering a question, and that she meant something like, yes, that's gonna happen, but... and that but is gonna be the key to undo the prophecy, but only after it has been fulfilled. There is also the chance though that we've been debated and Nicole simply lives in Fontaine, considering her name is French, so Irminsul may not be even involved. Anyway, for those who are thinking, oh, so now Irminsul can erase the past and not just memories, huh? Well, I never said that Irminsul will solve the destruction of Fontaine nor the death of the citizens. I only talked about Egeria. I honestly think that Furina will end up having the power to both deal with the flood and to bring the people back from their dissolution. I mean, it would be fitting for the one who's supposed to be the Archon to solve the problem of the nation, especially if she's the new heart of the Primordial Sea like Egeria was before her, so she would have full control of the primordial water. We were also never told that the people who got dissolved actually died. We just know that they shed their physical bodies, so they are not completely doomed. Maybe their bodies are unique and can be recreated by the same primordial water that took them away. Back to the trailer, we then hear Furina saying that her trial will be her way to show the true meaning of justice, followed by a ton of people talking over each other with a very loud music that makes everything incomprehensible. Still, among those voices, we hear Navia saying, "What's with these people?" Then Neuvillette telling someone they've never been as superficial as they have presented themselves to be, and I guess among those voices there should be also Child somewhere, since his voice actor's name comes before the last new character we see in the video, but I honestly couldn't recognize his voice. This is the part of the video that confused me. It would be very easy to say that those words are the NPCs in the Opera IP class during the trial, but I don't think so, at least not all of them. Navia could be referring to something else entirely happening in another moment of the quest, not necessarily her being surprised by the people being against Furina. The same goes for Neuvillette telling someone they're superficial. It would be obvious that this person is Furina because she does act very superficial most of the times, but there's something that doesn't really convince me about this. Anyway, we see Furina on the stage and the people being ecstatic about it. We hear someone saying something very specific, "This isn't right," which obviously may have nothing to do with Furina's trial. And finally Neuvillette's shocked on the stage, but in a sad way. I may be thinking that Furina, or even better Arlecchino if she's the prosecution, will show the people what's inside the Oratrice, what actually is deciding the trials, especially since we saw the Oratrice going crazy for a split second, and this would explain why the people are very confused about Furina's justice and they don't believe in it anymore. If the people stop believing in justice, then Indemnirium won't be produced anymore, and as a consequence, this may be one of the reasons why we then see the entirety of Fontaine submerged. Another very strange voice line is that person saying that he remembers about this trial, that this trial is... and then he stops. I swear I've heard that voice before, I just can't remember who it is. And lastly, there's one voice that says, "Fossolor, why did you deceive us?" Next we see this huge sword coming down that seems to be a guillotine, and by the looks of the windows it seems like it's in the tower next to Erinies. I kinda think that it's Remuria's tower since it was uprooted, and it does look uprooted, and it was said to have been drowned by a titanic wave, but they never really said that it sank. Still, the tower seems like the death row since Furina is seen walking there and the guillotine is also in the tower. Then we see Furina's hat rolling on the ground, that is clearly telling us that Furina is going to face Marie Antoinette's fate, so the guillotine is going down on her, but honestly, that would be a tiny bit too gory for the game. Maybe it will go down on her, but we'll jump in at the last second, save her, and we will see the hat rolling to make us believe that Furina died, but in the next scene we are shown that she is safe. I mean, we should be used to these baits in the trailers by now. It's obvious that Furina is not gonna die, especially not that way. We then hear Neuvillette saying that he finally understands the true purpose behind his position as the Iudex, and he also says that Fossolor is devious. Ignoring the Narwhal in the Opera IP class for a second, Neuvillette's words make me think that the true victim in 4.2 is going to be him rather than Furina. It feels like he has been used, he has been playing a part in the spectacle, although he's completely unaware of it. Did Furina make everything up for her own entertainment? Is this a plot that she wrote since the beginning? Was this just a show that she directed from the shadows? Is the Furina we know even aware of it? I gotta say, I've never been so confused before, but it makes sense since this is all a masquerade of the guilty. Back to the trailer, we see someone I'm really not surprised about. Skirk. I did say in my 4.0 analysis that I was expecting her to make an appearance, and I guess I was right. She tells us that the prophecy is in full swing and we finally see her. She does not look like a character from Genshin Impact, she looks like she came right out of Honkai Impact or Honkai Star Rail. The video ends with Furina dancing and saying something very disturbing. Obviously, her speech style is completely different, so that's not the usual Furina, it's someone or something else. Someone who actually feels evil, to be honest. It seems like she's talking to Neuvillette about the justice that belongs to him, and I think she's referring to him being the water dragon that is supposed to judge the gods, the heavenly principles, and even the primordial one. All will end in a magnificent and dramatic trial, which again, like I said before, feels planned. She says farewell to Neuvillette, hoping he enjoyed the part he has been playing for the last 500 years. This is why I think he is the actual victim here. The question is she saying goodbye because of her death sentence, or did something happen to Neuvillette, since it feels like this part he played has ended? All things considered, I think this version is gonna be extremely dramatic and with a lot of twists and turns we are not really expecting, probably because they can even be guessed. I gotta admit that it feels like there are actually two different Furina at play, although I've never been a fan of this theory. At this point we could even think that Furina planned this show, then cursed herself to split her body and soul. The soul was placed in the Oratrice, setting things in motion like sending Child to the fortress so that he could meet the Narwhal, while the body is more or less unaware and she's just looking for this twist in the story that she knows it's supposed to happen sooner or later. Or maybe this Furina is just an impersonator, a Kagemusha as A would say, someone who was promised something in return if she managed to stall enough for the actual Archon to find a solution to the prophecy. In this case, I would even think that Furina, the fake one, may be the prosecution while the defense will be Fossilor, the real one. Another theory that you will probably hate is that Furina is actually very childish. She has a group of strange Fontamer aberrants for her tea party, something like the imaginary friends that kids have when they're little, with which they have these playful tea parties. What if one of the two Furinas is something like an imaginary friend she invented for her own amusement? Something she created because she is indeed very lonely, as we heard in the pattern. In this case, Neuvillette played the part of probably the teacher in this imaginary game of hers, but now that the truth is out, things had to change. So maybe Furina's death, that I still don't think it's gonna happen, is a symbolic thing, the ending of this theatrical drama she wrote. When it comes to the Narwhal, I do think it has to do with the original water dragon rather than Scylla, the king of the dragons from Remuria. Well, unless Scylla is actually the second generation water dragon and Neuvillette is the third one. Child told us that he received these powers, his vision most likely, when he saw it in the abyss, and Child's element is Hydro, which suddenly stopped working as soon as the Narwhal was about to break free. And I say broke free because Sarah Miller-Cruz, Lumine's voice actress, told us that it finally broke the seal and descended upon Fontaine. Interestingly, we also know that the Sovereign of Water was in confinement. Anyway, it's a narwhal, which is basically a whale, so it is connected to water to begin with. When we are transported inside of it, because we are Pinocchio now, we see a strange enemy that reminds me of the Void Ranger Reavers from Honkai Star Rail. But we also see some Fontamer, and they are the ancestors of the Bishops, the Water Dragon descendants. The narwhal's name is All-Devouring Narwhal, but also Visitor from the far side of the Sea of Stars. If we think that Tevat is upside down, beyond the stars in the vast sky, there's the old world, the place where the dragon sovereigns lived, so that also may be a hint. When we end up inside of it, we will get an achievement called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which really makes a little sense to me. And this, let's call it domain, looks like something the narwhal ate in the past, although what's really interesting is the cubic shape of the rocks around it, very similar to the rocks in the chasm around the nail. The narwhal is shown to appear in the Opera Epiclese somehow, despite its dimensions, but a very interesting detail is that right before the narwhal breaks what looks like the fabric of reality to go from one dimension to another, or to warp from one place to another, Child's constellation appears. Lastly, Child seems to be attacking the narwhal, he's not defending it. So yeah, I don't think it's gonna be just an abyss monster or a galactic monster, that would be very underwhelming. By the way, if the narwhal is the previous water dragon, then Furina may have set everything in motion for Neuvillette to face his predecessor and gain those memories he was missing. You know, just to give at least one positive potential development of the story. As for the other boss, that weird deformed Oceanid, since we have been told we will finally reach the ending of the Nartissenkoitz's adventurer's quest, and we also see the Doomsday Clock falling to the ground, is that thing Rene? He did dissolve himself, and he probably used something like Remuria's Golden Ihor, so its appearance would make sense. When it comes to the two trees, if you watched Musashi's video, you probably already knew about the Weeping Willow, which we can actually already see from the 4.1 map, although the incomprehensible blob version of it, while the other one is completely new. The Melusines are involved in this war quest, so I guess it will have something to do with the corruption of the Abyss, so Elenas, and we do need to purify the area, so it could make sense. The fog does remind me of Tsurumi Island, so I guess it's gonna be pretty interesting, although I hope there won't be the getting lost system as well. We also see Furina there fighting the wind that the other water blob is causing, so maybe it's related to the Oceanids, especially because it's called Loch Urania, which is one of the Oceanids we fought in the past. Last thing I'm gonna talk about is Furina's vision. In her splash art, she doesn't have it, there's a blue stone, but in her gameplay, she actually has a vision. This may be because she can switch between Numa and Osea, but I doubt anyone will ever check the vision to see which arcade she's using, especially since the color of her clothes also changes and it's way more evident. And that's it, I hope you liked the video. If you did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up, and if you're interested in Genshin Impact Theory videos, consider subscribing. Sadly, I didn't have the time to make a long, in-depth video since the update will be released very shortly. I ended up sharing my confusion with you all, but really this trailer has left me speechless. We were shown too many unexplainable things and we have too little time to figure them out. Well, I guess I'll see you again when I'll have played every single quest in 4.2, so with my usual the most detailed analysis of video. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, over and out.